We've got more people joining. Hello, hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Great to see you all again. I'll keep admitting all. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
And welcome to the next session of our career boot camp. Once again, seeing some familiar names on the list. So hi again if you've been joining any of the previous sessions, and if you are new to the career boot camp, welcome, welcome. We're really happy to have you today. So today we have a really exciting session planned, and it's going to be all about interviewing. So obviously a super important topic if you are looking to transition into a new role. So I'm really excited about this one. And our host for today. Oh yes, I see. Yes, do throw in chat where you're coming in from. We love to see that. So today our host is Nicolina. She is a career transition coach, HR and learning and development specialist, and psychotherapist in training. She has HR experience from several different industries and extensive knowledge of what it means to be human. And she has specialized in career transitions for corporate professionals um, who want to take their careers into their own hands. So, very relevant for all of you who are, of course, going through this career transition as well. And I'm going to keep on letting people in now and hand over to Nicolina. So take it away.
Thank you, Grace, so much. And hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here and very happy for today's session. And I also love seeing where you all are from. So, from me, just a bit of a more additional background. I'm coming from Zagreb, from Croatia. And as Grace mentioned, I am working in parallel as a career transition coach while also maintaining a full-time job in HR in the company where I currently work with, where I mostly do half and half between recruiting and selection of candidates and also everything that's related to learning and development. It's under kind of under my area of expertise. So I was really excited when I got the chance to participate in this, just because I see candidates on a daily basis and they work in such field where they are also transitioning from a lot of different areas, mostly from academia to industry or different types of industry to our company. And since I've also worked in a lot of different fields, I've seen a lot. And aside from that, I have my own personal experience of changing a job a couple of times from being very generalist position to specifically into L&D and then going back into the more like human resources generalist type of work. So I know a thing or two about what it means to change the job. And also what it means to sit on either or both sides of the table. So before we begin for today, I have just a couple of small disclaimers for everyone, just to kind of set up expectations. The first thing was when we were talking about the title, I was thinking like, what does it actually mean to ace an interview? Does it mean that you walk out of it feeling happy, that you did good? Does it mean that you get an invitation to the next one? Does it mean that they like you, you receive really positive feedback? There is no one correct answer. And everything also that I will share with you today, all of the tips and guidelines and stories was based on my own personal experience. That means also that what you encounter personally in your experience may be different just because every recruiter, every company, every industry is different. And most importantly, every single one of you is different. So what I would strongly encourage you is that you take from what you hear what works for you, leave the rest for someone else. And I hope you will get a lot of useful information from the session today. So just I already did kind of a short introduction, but I wanted to kind of point out here when I was putting a list of all of my different professional roles, and I was thinking that uh, if at this moment I were looking for another job, I'm not actually sure if there exists an ideal job that would kind of fall aligned with all of my qualifications and all of the things that I can bring to the table and to that position. On one hand, I have a coaching experience, I have a psychology background, I have a psychotherapy background, experience working both in human resources, in L&D. I have worked as a recruiter, even though it's not necessarily my favorite, to be honest, but I do get also a lot of fun speaking with people. I also have the role of an internal trainer, which in some companies it aligns with this, in some companies it's completely different. I'm also very much a learning enthusiast, which sometimes for some people can be a lot. And if you put on top of all of this that I work with people all the time and I hate small talk. And I'm sure that when you go to an interview, you always have this little like beginning of a small talk. I really, really hate it. So it can be very difficult to kind of find um, like one common thread in terms of how can I represent myself very succinctly, very straightforward so that the other side understands who I am and what can I bring. So what was my approach then, thinking of this, is I was thinking about my experience, I was thinking of experience of my candidates, and what I've thought of first are some very, very common misconceptions that people have about interviews. So I will get back to those in a minute, but also to share how I have structured the rest of the session for today is that I would like to focus on what I would call 4 types of mistakes that I often see candidates make, especially when they are transitioning into a different field and different area. So what you can expect from today's session is that we will talk a little bit about mindset, about the importance of preparation and what kind of research you have to do, a little bit about communication skills and in general communication approach. And finally, we will tackle some of those like very tough questions. During the workshop, as we will go through all of these sessions, you will see that I have prepared some exercises for you to do. If you want, you can share the answers with others. If you don't want, that's perfectly okay. And hopefully by the end, we will leave some time to answer some of your very direct questions. Okay. So to go back to kind of still setting up the expectations around interviews, what I noticed most, or sometimes that candidates actually say out loud, is that there are some very common misconceptions. So the first one is this, which maybe is not a good thing to say about my own colleagues, but people on the other side of the table, the interviewers, the recruiters, people think that they always know what they're doing. And to be honest, this is not the case in terms that it very much depends on what kind of interview you are having. So if you are having like a more general HR type of interview where you talk about your experience, your characteristics, your profile, how do you manage different situations, with what type of people you like to work, etc. Those people usually do have training in interviewing, and they are trained to actually recognize some of the most important characteristics in candidates. If you are speaking with someone who has more technical background or very specific industry knowledge, they may not be as trained into the interviewing skills as some of the others. Sometimes those are separate interviews, sometimes those people are mixed. And why am I saying this? Because it's important to keep in mind that no matter who is sitting on the other side, first of all, they're not the perfect recruiter. They're also still people. And it means that they will sometimes make like a judgment or a perception of you based on their own feeling. So it's not going to be strictly objective, like, okay, this person has these qualifications, she or he has shown this set of knowledge or skills or attitude, but they will be more like, I like this person. This is the person that I want to work with. It doesn't mean it's bad, just to keep in mind that everything that you do from the minute you apply to a job interview until, you know, the moment they send out the feedback is a part of the interview process, and someone can judge every single part of it. Okay, the second misconception is that there is such a thing as an ideal candidate. And this is a question that I get quite a lot from people. And you can write in the chat if this is something, if you have ever asked at an interview, because I always feel like it's so much easier if we have the idea that there is an ideal candidate, so we can compare ourselves to it, so we can see what we can improve or what's the difference. But in reality, an ideal candidate doesn't exist, at least for the most cases. So why is that? I can give you from my personal experience in terms of what am I looking for when I am recruiting someone. So on one hand, of course, there is this technical side of things. Do you have the knowledge, the skills, or the experience that is required for the role? But that's, I would say, the easiest thing that we can look at. The second thing I'm looking at is mindset, the overall feeling of the person, the attitude. Have they done the research? How do they approach the whole process? What are they thinking about the job, the position? Are they realistic or not? So this is something that's more unique, more individual, and something that's not as easily kind of comparable. And then there is the third thing that candidates don't know about because they cannot have that impression, and that is what is the team that I'm hiring for? For example, I work currently in a company where, although it's one company, every single department that I'm working with is different. They have different job descriptions, they have different types of tasks, and by default, they need different types of candidates in terms of like personality. That means that what would be an ideal candidate for one department is not necessarily an ideal candidate for the other. Or what can be an ideal candidate for one manager, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an ideal candidate for another manager that's in the same area, just because we have to think of something that's called a cultural fit and a team fit. So sometimes we are also choosing who would fit the best into an existing team. And that means that sometimes I would give advantage to someone just based on the personality rather than skills, just because I feel that for whatever reason, that person will not be able to perform their best at this job. And this is something some of you may think it's fair, some of you think it's not, but I can tell you from a personal experience that I've had an opportunity to work in a company where they chose me and I wasn't a fit. I wasn't a fit into the culture and I wasn't a fit into the team. And I was miserable. And just because of that, I didn't enjoy the job that I was doing. I literally, after a month, I knew that I'm going to quit this job. And overall, it wasn't a very nice experience. So I am a huge advocate that, okay, skills are great, personality is great, but you also have to consider that you already have an existing group of people. And long story short, an ideal candidate doesn't exist, at least from my perspective. Okay, and third thing that I wanted to share is that it's a misconception that you should trust everything you read online. I'm not sure if that's your experience, but anytime where I Google something in terms of how should you, what should you ask, how should you approach, how should you prepare, there are always these very opposite types of advice. On one hand, you have like, be very prepared, research everything. On the other hand, like, don't do anything, just be you. On one hand, it's like give very strict, very professional answers, just, strictly to the questions. On the other hand, it's like, just be yourself, bring your like full personality, just, enjoy the process. And it can be very, very confusing. Just like with everything else, I always see, and it's very noticeable when you're reciting like an answer that is learned from something that you have read online. So I have just put here to kind of encourage everyone, no matter what you do, if it's preparing for a job, for an interview, researching about the company, or just looking for some general life advice, take everything that you hear with a grain of salt, because not everything works for everyone. And with that, I think it's time to move into the more practical aspect of things and these four kind of types of mistakes. And I put mistakes here in brackets because they're not necessarily mistakes in terms of things that you shouldn't do or things that people do wrong. It's just more mistakes in terms of areas that if you take a bit more consideration about, or if you kind of become more aware about how you are approaching them, they can be the things that can make it or break it in terms of going to that next step and leaving a really, really good opinion on the interviewers on the other side. So to begin with, let's talk about mindset. So one of my favorite sayings of all time is that in a world where you can be anything, you just have to be yourself. And I mean this in the sense of there is no one else out there like you, and that's something that you should be very proud of. Also, it means to own your truth and own your story. Now, I took a peek at some of the sessions that you've had before, and I think it's a really, really good start to really know by heart where you are at in life, what you have gone through, and what do you see as the next steps. And here, it doesn't matter if you have some parts that are maybe not ideal or that you are not proud of. For example, I can give you my perspective. If you look at my CV, yes, you can say that I have experience in 4 different industries. That's great. Someone else may say it, yes, but you have changed like 3 jobs in the 4 or 5 years. And that can be kind of a red flag. And I agree, both sides can be true. What people don't know that based on why I have changed the job so often is because on one place I had a really, really bad experience with interpersonal relationships, and on the other place I was a really bad cultural fit and I was miserable. So this is not something that I can hide. This is not something that I should be ashamed of, or something that I should try to make it look like something that isn't. It is what it is. The thing is, what am I going to do with it? If it's something that I have used an opportunity to learn something out of, and how will I bring that experience and that knowledge into every next single decision or job or whatever I'm looking for. Also, here I would like to point out something that I see very often is that when people are asked about something that they haven't had an experience with, whether it's a skill, um, like a type of work, for example, if they have worked on like an international project, or if they have experience in a very specific tool, and they usually say, yes, I know it, I have worked with it, but in reality, maybe they have just seen it or they know that someone else is using it. This is not knowing how to use something. And I encourage you to be very honest in terms of what you know and what real experience you have compared to what you don't know. Because it's much more worse if you say you know something and then it turns out that you don't know actually how to do it, than to say, I have never worked at it myself. I saw my colleague working in it, but that's it. Honesty can go a very, very long way. Also, I would like to point out here one thing that I think can kind of get a bit buried under anxiety if you're that type of person, is that people often forget that in a job interview, uh, it's not only the company that's choosing you, you are also the one that's choosing the company. And this means also to trusting your own instincts or trusting your own gut. And, maybe if I know it's very difficult if you're looking for a job because you don't have a job, your existence is at the line, it's a difficult financial situation. So it's not like a privileged position where you can say, yeah, I don't really like these people, it's not the right fit for me, I'll look for something else. But the idea is, if you really have a bad feeling about something, you should trust it, at least in terms of trying to understand where is it coming from, to ask some additional questions to the recruiter and to the company, but trust your own instincts. I'm curious, you can also share in the chat if someone has had recently an experience where they have been on an interview and you had a bad feeling, or you had a feeling where something was just off, and what was the experience like? Additionally, while we are talking to mindset, aside from having a clear idea of what you're looking for. And when I say a clear idea, it doesn't mean you have to know everything in detail, but just the overall direction in which you are going. I love nothing more than candidates who show one of these three things, and that's growth mindset, approach to failure, which is very constructive, and willingness to learn. And here is the part where I cannot stress enough, is that any skill can be learned. Whatever you don't know how to do physically, you can learn how to do it. But to change a mindset, and especially of an adult who has had some work and life experience, that's a very, very difficult thing to do. So, but I'm sure, I know the L&D Shakers group in general, and I'm sure that all of us here already have the growth mindset, this like very open approach to failure in terms of, you have to try something. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You just learn something from it. And this overall willingness to learn, because this is the baseline that can help you go over any obstacle or any single thing that you don't know. And to kind of summarize all of that is that please remember, if you don't get selected to proceed further, it's not necessarily about you. It can be about any one of a million reasons, whether it's not a cultural fit, whether they have a better or a different type of candidate. Maybe you're too junior, maybe you're too senior, maybe they have lost the budget and decided not to hire anyone. Maybe after seeing all of the candidates, they have decided they want to go in a completely different direction. So I know it can be tough and demanding, but as long as you are you, the right job is going to come. I'm sure of that. And I see some what I would call horror stories in terms of bad experiences. And it just shows us that, we are all people. People always make mistakes. We all have some good and bad experiences. And here, it's just this idea of sharing our experiences with everyone. Okay, so for me to take a little bit of break from talking, I want you to take a minute or two and try to think of what are 3 unique things that you can bring to any job position. What makes you you? And I know, especially when I'm working with my coaching clients, I always give them this exercise, which may be difficult to do in a short time, but try to think of like a catchphrase for yourself. So are you people enabler, ideas maker, project whisperer? I have a colleague who just yesterday I called her like, you're a machine whisperer, because she does with a lot of like heavy analytical machines. Maybe you're a community builder, or maybe you're just a very good analytical type, which, for example, I am not. So you never know who can benefit from your skills. So think about it. You'll have 2 to 3 minutes, and please share at least one thing, what makes you you, in the chat so we can see who's here today. Okay, so we have one people enabler. I love it. Oh, enthusiastic problem solver. Great. I love it. I like to call myself like people supporter, but now that I'm reading your answers, like I think I'll have to rebrand that a little, a little bit. So brainstorming queen. I love the attitude. Yes, great. So I'm gonna move on, but you just feel free to write who you are in the chat. I love reading this. Okay, so the second thing that I wanted to highlight today is more like a very concrete, and this is usually can be a mistake in terms of when people approach transitions, especially to a field where they have not worked in before, or it's different from their current experience. And the mistake is of not doing, I would say, the right kind of research. Most of the times, although not all, people do research the company. And that's definitely something that you need to do, because you need to look at, what people are, what the company is working on, who are they, a little bit about their story, background, how they're representing themselves to the world. But when you're transitioning, some of the things that people, and you may not even think about, and I know that because this is a mistake that I have made, I work in human resources, and at not one point in changing my jobs have I thought of the idea that maybe it's not the same if I work for a company that has 50 people or 3,000 people, or a company that has very flat structure, zero processes set up, or a company that has like 17 levels of hierarchy and all of the processes are set up for the last 15 or 20 years. And I did exactly that. I transitioned from one end of the spectrum to the whole other extreme. And the adjustment to it, it was very, very difficult. Over time and experience, what I've noticed is that some things would be a lot easier if I actually took some time and did some research and think about what could working at this position mean for me. So how I like to approach it, when you're doing your research, I always encourage people to think in 3 dimensions or 3 different perspectives. On one hand, and you can see here in the middle, is we have a company. It's not the same if the company you're looking at is a startup, is it someone who has a long history, or if it's a franchise. It's also not same if it's only from one country and they don't have branches in other countries, or if it's an international company. It's also not the same considering which country the founders or the owners are from, because I have worked for like a local Croatian company and like a large German corporation, and those 2 things couldn't be more different. Another important aspect is a company working, for example, in retail. Are they developing a product that they are selling, or they are providing services to others? This is a very important aspect because this can tell you a lot about what is the approach to work. It's completely different if you are the one who they're calling every time they have a problem and you're working for 50 or 100 different clients, or if you are the one who is trying to sell a solution to someone else. Of course, some of the things that are very common in terms of what's the industry, what's the company size, but this is kind of like the basis of understanding also what's kind of the culture in the company. Then the second perspective you can take is what is your role, or the role that you're applying for. Of course, is it a junior, mid, or senior level? Is it more a specialist or generalist role? Are you working for external clients? Because, for example, the company is providing some sort of learning and development services, or you're working internal L&D. Those are 2 completely different areas. Are you more working with systems or with people? And what I have highlighted here is who is responsible for the processes. It can be very, very different job. If, for example, you have the role of an L&D manager and you're working in a company that is, for example, either a franchise or it has the same structure in all of the countries, and then you have someone else who decides on the processes and your job is just to implement it, or you're working as an L&D manager who has the role of building all new processes. So because those 2 roles require a different set of skills and different candidates for it. And of course, we shouldn't forget the third perspective. What would be the team that you're working with? Is it just a 1-person job, or do you have a team? Is it a team of 2 or 20 people? To whom would you report? Because it's not the same if you're reporting to a line manager or if you're reporting directly to, for example, someone who's on the board of members or the CEO of the company. Also, some of the things that are very common these days in terms if it's on-site, remote, multicultural, multilingual, if it's a new role or an existing one, and also how many people are doing the same job as you. All of this information can give you a much better perspective in terms of what type of tasks, responsibilities, and expectations a company will have from the people in this role. And just here as a note, I know that some of the things you can find out very easy just by Googling the company, for example. Some of these things you may not know, But here, I would like to encourage you to think of these things. And then when you're on your next interview, ask the company about the things that you don't know about, because this will give you a much better idea. And to test it out, I call it, let's play a bingo in terms of what experiences do you have so far. So look at all of the lists that we have here and kind of try to write for yourselves. For example, me, I have the role both as a specialist and a generalist in my experience. I have worked as part of a team and an individual. I have worked in companies with three different sizes and with owners who are, for example, from Croatia, Germany, and Poland. So it's kind of to see where you are at. And this will just give you kind of an overview of what's the current situation. And then for every next interview that you're looking to go through, try to play the bingo again in terms of where the new company stands for at this new position, and you can then compare it. So the part that I'm always curious from, and if you want to share, is this question of which country are the founders from? Because I think that for anyone who has worked at an international company, especially from the country that's not their own, you know how different that can be. So I'll also give you a couple of minutes to think about. I hope everyone has at least 5 things they found on your bingo cards at the moment. So to keep mindful of time, I know that you will have the recording, so you will be able to revisit this list and kind of keep as a reminder for you. So to go back to the third, let's call it mistake, or an area that you can think of is what is your communication style, or better said, communication approach to an interview. And I was thinking, you know, if I have to put it in 3 words, those would definitely be professionalism, sincerity, and authenticity. Now, what does that mean? First, aim for a communication style that's professional but relaxed. And I know that professional, it's something that I think all of us can understand what it is, but relaxed, it's maybe something that's a bit more difficult to handle. And here I always encourage my candidates, and this is something actually that's a therapy technique that I'm using, is if you are nervous, just say it out loud. If you have someone who's a normal person on the other side, for them it's completely understandable that interviews can be stressful. So it's a thing that I have never taken for like a minus for the candidate if they were nervous. If a person on the other side has a problem with you being nervous or anxious, I would say that that's a problem of that person. because anyone who has ever gone to an interview knows that it's not always an easy thing. And also, if you say something out loud, you kind of your brain works in a way that it's bothering you, and then when you say it out loud, you have done an action with it. So it can kind of help you relax. It's a bit of counterintuitive, but just, okay, yes, I'm nervous. I have said it. It's not here, in my mind somewhere. The other person knows about it. So now I can focus on other things. And there's really nothing bad about it. The second thing here that I wanted to point out, and this is something that can really kind of shape your approach, or not approach, your how people see you, is if you are not answering their questions directly. What I mean by that, I can see sometimes in candidates, if they don't know the answer or they don't haven't had an experience in the area that we are talking about, they will start talking about something else, or they will use a lot of words but not say a lot of content. I always encourage you, answer directly to the question and stick to that question. Don't add anything extra or go necessarily off the topic just because you don't know what to say or you haven't had an experience with, because it shows. And if you're not sure how to provide an example, I always encourage people to use the STAR technique, which means you can always start by describing a situation, saying what was your task of it, describing what you did as an action, and what was the result. This is something that's applicable both to just describing your experience in a field or describing how you have approached a certain problem. Works great for both, and it can help you by kind of to practice answering maybe for some of the tough questions that you're struggling with. Also here, once again, but I think I have already mentioned this a couple of times, be honest or don't lie, depending on how you take it. This means something similar to, for example, what I mentioned, that I've changed 3 companies in 4 years because I've had some bad experience with my colleagues. I'm okay with saying that, but I will never, ever talk bad about specific people, kind of put the blame on someone else, or be very negative or dismissive of others, because that tells more about me. For me, I did what was best for me. I walked away. I learned something from the situation, but you never know, who knows someone. And on the other hand, it's never nice to, at least in life in general, to talk bad about other people. It can turn easily to gossiping, and that's definitely something we want to avoid. And finally, here in communication, I was thinking of what was always usually the first question that I ask candidates after I give a bit of an introduction, and that is to tell me a little bit more about themselves. And this is usually an opener or an icebreaker for any interview. And here, I think this is the part where you can see who has practiced it, but not who knows their story, who's very comfortable with saying, okay, yes, this is me in 5 sentences. So here, if you are not sure how to approach it, I always like to think of it as practicing your interview elevator pitch. If you only have those 2 to 3 minutes to say something about yourself, what would be the most important information you want the other person to know? If you don't know how to approach it, my suggestion would be to start with your educational background. What's your professional experience? What's your current situation in terms of either the job or if you're unemployed, where you're at the moment, and what is your motivation either for company or for next steps in your career. And this can give you kind of an overview of everything that's important for an interview. And from that, me as an interviewer, I can focus on some of the areas and continue asking questions about it. So to kind of practice this a little bit, I will give you, I think we're just good on the time, give you 4 to 5 minutes to practice to write down your elevator pitch. So think of it in terms of what would be 3 to 4 sentences that loosely follow this order. But if you have any other idea, feel free to go for it. Something that you can bring to any interview, no matter what is the position that you're applying for. And if some of you are writing it online, you can also share in the chat so we can hear a little bit more, but I will give you a couple of minutes. I hope you, I see some very busy writing, so that's always good. Means you're practicing. And thank you for sharing um, in the chat. And to be mindful of time, I know we have one more thing to go over, and then I think we will have a couple of minutes for some additional questions. So the final out of the four areas that I wanted to mention is answering those tough questions. And for me, but that's my perspective, I think the toughest question I usually ask candidates, aside from what are your good sides, because I'm not sure if this is your perspective, but at least in Croatia, people are just not very good at, saying what they are good at. But the second toughest would be why you, in terms of why should we choose you. Some other examples of questions that I have found hard for candidates to answer is, for example, why do you want to work for this company? Or what do you see as the biggest challenge or challenges, considering that you don't have the desired or any experience in this field? And like, why should we choose you? Why, from my perspective or the perspective of an interviewer, why are these questions tough? Because here, well, first of all, there is no one right answer. Motivation can be different, and who am I to judge if one person's motivation is better or worse than another's? Um, this is tough because here I think is a part where you can really see if someone is prepared, if someone has the right mindset, if someone knows what is the value that they are bringing to the table. As I mentioned in the beginning, for example, I'm working with a lot of candidates who are transitioning from academia or different types of industry to the industry where I'm working at. And a lot of times they have seen the machines. They know how it's a scientific field, so they know how those like essays and things work. They have the knowledge, but nothing prepares them for the dynamic, what it means to work for other clients, what it means to work in a collective where you have 50 people who are doing the same thing as you, what it means when you have very tight deadlines, where there is a big pressure in terms of expectations of quality. So these are the things that are very different based on their previous experience, and there isn't a lot that can prepare them unless they really understood the role, the company, and themselves. So before I go into what would be my strategy, I would really love to hear what is your definition of a tough question on an interview? Because I know that since the L&D field is very broad and there are many different ways in which and from to you can transition, I would like to make this as useful for you as possible. So please share what are all of the tough questions for you so we can see how we can work with that. Mhm. I see here a good example of why shouldn't we choose you? Yeah, that's also an interesting spin to give the candidates. It's great. What are your weaknesses? Oh yeah, I love that one. In terms of, I really hate asking that question, but I love it because you can really see if someone did their internet research. And I think the probably worst piece of advice you can find on the internet is to say a weakness, but that's also like a strength, so you can work with it. Just because, weakness is a weakness in a way. And I'm more open to being honest in terms of something that's not necessarily hurting your job. Chocolate? Great. So I can, while we are on the weaknesses, I can share my perspective. What I've noticed is that usually when when I speak to others about these topics, I can say, I'm very much like a learning enthusiast. I can see the bigger picture. But on the other hand, I'm like the worst person to be oriented to details. And, when I'm writing like an email or something to do with the data or numbers, you have to double or triple check. I will triple check it. I will put a lot of effort into it, and I will still make a mistake. So that's just something that experience has taught me, but I have also found ways in which I can work with that, in which, I know how to control myself. I know how to double check, especially on the things that are very important. I know how to ask for help. And this is an example how you can show something that is like a real weakness in terms of that it can kind of hurt my job, but it also shows that I am aware of it and what are some of the steps that I have implemented in terms of how do I deal with it, because it also shows like, okay, yes, I'm ready to work on myself. Okay, I will go over your questions in a minute. I just wanted to also kind of share with you what's something that no matter what is the tough question, if it's a question that's related to you, for example, why you, why do you want to work for this company, why yes, why no, what to do if you have or don't have experience, you can always connect it with three things. So what are your values or motivation in terms of why do you want to do this? What is your previous experience? And I saw in the chat that we had a question like, what if you don't have experience, but you have some transferable skills? This is absolutely something that you can use because that's what makes you you. And your mindset in terms of if your mindset is, okay, I know I don't have experience in this area, but I know I'm someone who's very like problem solving oriented. And I know I've had an experience where I was working on solving some large problems. And I know the steps in which I can take to approach this new position. Now, your values can be anything from what we also talked about, like what makes you you? Are you more a people person or a machine person? Are you a numbers or feelings type of person? Do you work more better in a team or alone? So anything that kind of moves you, any kind of personal experience, and the mindset that's growth mindset and very oriented to learning. And with a combination of that, I really don't think you can go wrong. I saw some questions. Why had to ask the interview why they think you should get the job, or what makes you stand out. I actually really like that tip, and I think it's always a good thing to kind of going back to the idea of it's not just the company that's choosing. You are also the one who is choosing them. I think it's always good to ask any questions that you have in terms of what the person on the other side of the table likes working for the company, what they see as some of the challenges, what they think of you. You can always ask for feedback. So, kind of to take also the ownership of the interview in terms of that you're also in a way kind of interviewing them. So don't forget that. And I know we are very close to the end, so I just wanted to share a couple of final thoughts, mostly from my personal experience, is that I know that career transitions, and especially if you're going through a lot of different interviews, can be very emotionally demanding and draining. So just please remember to be kind to yourself. And very closely connected to that, don't take rejection personally, because sometimes it's just not you. There can be a million different factors that are going to influence who gets the job. Also, that good preparation and exposure to different type of companies, interviewers, fields, or just networking are really great. And also seek any kind of additional means of support that work for you, whether it's through your loved ones, through someone who works as a professional coach or in any other field, or through communities like this. because you really don't have to go through it alone. And with that, I think I'm somewhere on the hour mark. So I would thank everyone who joined us today. I hope you were able to find something useful for you. And of course, you can connect with me on LinkedIn at any time. I would be more than happy to meet you all there.
Nice. Thank you so much, Nicolina. Just being a little bit conscious of the time. There are a couple of questions left over in the chat, but maybe what we can do is what we've done in previous sessions is taken the questions and then added them to the Miro board. And
Definitely.
so, yeah, people can check the
Definitely.
answers there just to be conscious of everyone's time. And yeah, thank you so much. So much valuable knowledge and information there. I was taking notes myself.
Mhm.
So yeah, thank you so much.
Everyone.
And I see here the LinkedIn for the Nicolina. I shared that in very early on. If you scroll up in the chat, you should be able to find Nicolina's LinkedIn. And so yeah, this is it for today. So while everyone is dropping out, if you want to throw in the chat one thing, one aha moment that you had from today, please do. We'll follow up with the questions in the Miro board, and yeah, next sessions continue next week. It will be our final week, so looking forward to seeing your faces then, and um, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Aha moment, the whole session, amazing.
You
Alrighty, bye everyone.
guys. Bye bye.